June 22nd, myself and Nicholas Guzman here alongside me on this Zoom. Of course, James Birle was unable to attend, but we had the pleasure to go watch the Red Bulls play New York City out in Harrison, New Jersey in the U.S. Open Cup quarterfinals, where the Red Bulls triumphed my NYCFC 3-0. Since that match in June, it seemed like both teams were gearing up for this upcoming weekend, Sunday, July 17th, where the two will face each other in another installment of the New York Derby. This one, though, worth more bragging rights, you might have to say, because it is in the MLS regular season. New York City FC, who struggled to get going under Nick Guzman after the manager was appointed on originally and still is on that tentative skippership, I would guess I will coin it, but got the monkey off their back last Saturday, taking down New England Revolution at home at Yankee Stadium, and then took down FC Dallas yesterday, Wednesday, 1-0 on the road, gearing up for what should be an exciting match on Sunday. There's a ton of talking points going into this. But first, James, Nick, I know I'm the lone man out here. I throw it over to you guys. Talk me up about how Red Bull is ready to gear up for this, because we saw it with NYCFC getting that monkey off their back, finally getting Cushing his first win as boss of the Citizens, and then handling FC Dallas yesterday. Looks to be NYCFC's return to the form that saw them go atop the Eastern Conference, now only 1 point behind the Philadelphia Union. I'm really stoked for this game on Sunday. It's got all the makings of an instant classic, but from the NYCFC perspective, I got to know how Red Bulls are coming into this match, especially, James, your favorite player, Aaron Long.
Well, as the newly crowned MLS All-Star that is Aaron Long, I think the New York Red Bulls have a lot to be confident coming into this Sunday. Not only because they're going to be at home again, and now that they've regained that home form, now 5 straight wins in all competitions at home, 4 of which were at Red Bull Arena. Famously, the U.S. Open Cup match against New York City FC really galvanized the fans. I think there's a lot to be excited about. The Red Bulls have really committed to their style of play this season and have seen great contributions from the likes of Keenan and Lewis Morgan, a couple players who I thought were overlooked by the selection committee for the All-Star game. But nonetheless, you've got 2 top teams in the Eastern Conference. New York City, of course, has that game in hand, but they still sit in second and the Red Bulls in third. It's going to be a great matchup. I don't think the 3-0 scoreline in the last game when these two teams met up really reflected the scoreline, but I do think the Red Bulls firmly won that match. And I think we're going to see a tighter affair this time around. I think a lot of the mentality issues for New York City FC have since been sorted out. And yeah, I'm really excited for this one too. It's going to be my first game back at the arena in a while. And yeah, I just can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
It's really it's an honor to do this with you, Keenan, such a diehard NYCFC fan since March. Is it? You've been diehard supporting the club, really?
When the banner went up, I went up with it.
Yeah.
What
Sounds
banner?
about right.
That was a poster.
Sounds about right. For the Red Bulls, as James hasn't been able to go to the games, I've been at pretty much all the home games this year, except for one, which was their first home win against DC United. And I think what I've seen really over the course of this season is, as James said, a commitment to the Red Bull way and the Red Bull style of way in terms of the style of play, rather, in terms of pressing and just how they want to approach games. And I think early in this season, we saw the Red Bulls sort of struggle creating chances and scoring goals at home. But, recently, whether it was the output against DC United over Memorial Day weekend back in May, or against Toronto FC, a home win more recently, the Red Bulls have figured out how to score goals at home. And in that Open Cup match against New York City FC at home, where myself and Keenan were there, we saw really how the Red Bulls just got into the heads of NYCFC. I think, as you mentioned, James, NYCFC are definitely going to be more mentally prepared for this matchup. I mean, Nick Guzman was just anointed when that match happened. They've had a solid run of games under him now. They've got 2 wins under the belt, most recently yesterday against FC Dallas. So I think it's going to be a much closer affair, at least in terms of score. I think the game, as you mentioned, James, was close anyway, even though the scoreline was 3-0 when these teams met back in June. But this really has all the makings of an instant classic, just because both these teams, if you look at the standings right now, you've got NYCFC in second, 19 matches played, 35 points. The Red Bulls just behind them with one more match played and 33 points. This has serious playoff implications as we sort of move along here in the summer and get closer and closer to the playoffs in the fall.
You talked about the ability of the Red Bulls on the pitch to get under the skin of NYCFC players, Nick. Goes without noting that animosity was felt by NYCFC fans, which shocking, not directed at Red Bulls fans, but amongst themselves. We were there. I thankfully got out of Harrison, New Jersey before the chaos ensued on the PATH train home, and everywhere in between as fans were fighting one another and all of the shenanigans that came along with it, which resulted in NYCFC supporter section being cut down from 1,500 to 500 in their next trip to Harrison. This isn't the first time we've seen a clash when these two teams meet. If you think back to NYCFC's inaugural season, there was a famous fight in Harrison in the downtown in which trash cans, yard signs, etc. were weaponized in a skirmish between supporters. You have to think, at least as an NYCFC fan, because when we were at that Open Cup game, the away end, yes, it was tucked in the second tank where no one else sits because Red Bulls can't draw flies, but also it was a very strong supporter section. You could hear them chanting at times louder than the Red Bull supporters, and it wasn't until the Red Bulls got into that game with that first goal and the subsequent red card to Thiago that the atmosphere really became Red Bulls dominant. I think from an NYCFC perspective, it really hurts when you have, a derby that means so much, both to the players, but also in terms of standing implications. And also in the sense that this was a self-inflicted injury, you went after your own kin. But I'm curious to know how the Red Bulls, in an arena that attendance is speculative at best when we see what they draw, curious to know how you guys think the Red Bulls are going to be able to take a diminished NYCFC supporter section and use that to their advantage as Harrison, New Jersey becomes really strong and really loud for those Red Bulls.
Well, Keenan, I'll have you know that that Open Cup game was a Red Bull Arena record for Open Cup attendance at just over 12,000. And I know that number doesn't sound like a lot, but for a midweek U.S. Open Cup game, historically in any venue in America, that's kind of a big deal. I will agree, though, that the atmosphere didn't really pick up until the second half. And I don't think the team played that well in the first half to begin with. But yeah, coming in with a third of the fan base that they had last time, I think it's going to make a big, big difference for the Red Bulls. Both of these teams are coming in with something to prove. The Red Bulls have confidence, but they want to regain that second position in the table. A win could even push them up to first. NYCFC wants to, get one back at the Red Bulls because they took one from them. They've never beaten the Red Bulls in the Open Cup. All that's going to be on their mind, losing their heads with Thiago and the red card. I don't think the attendance this weekend will be speculative, as you said. I think we're going to see a very, very big crowd. I'm not saying every seat's going to be full, certainly not in the away section because there's going to have to be empty seats. But I think we're going to see a great atmosphere. And I think it's a good thing for NYCFC too, because, they've gone on the road and gotten results even just this past week. I think that's a big thing for them because they needed to get a string of results together. But at the same time, for the Red Bulls, not having a game this week was a big thing for them too, because they have been pushing their players to the brink with the amount of double week games, midweek games, 3 games in 8 days. Some players have had to do. Lack of depth for the Red Bulls has been an issue. I think this Sunday, we're going to see 2 of the strongest teams that they can put out and 2 of the strongest teams in the league battling it out. I think the atmosphere is going to be great, even with the limited NYCFC fans. There's a number of New York City fans scattered across the stadium as well outside the away section. So I don't think it is going to make that much of a difference on the actual match. I think if anything, it's still going to be a great night of soccer in our little corner of the world here.
I've been waiting this season as I've gone to pretty much every game for Red Bull Arena to truly be popping and alive. Like I remember it being, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe the days of Thierry Henry and Tim Cahill, where I just have memories of a full Red Bull Arena packed in the supporter section, totally full. And it probably won't be a total sellout this weekend, but I feel like we're getting back closer towards that sort of atmosphere. When Red Bull, as you've told me so many times, James, when Red Bull Arena is full, there's not many atmospheres like it, especially in the United States or North America. I mean, the place literally shakes when everybody's jumping and the fans are loud. I'm looking forward to that this weekend. And I think the Red Bulls, this, as you mentioned, James, this week off is so huge. I don't know if there's many teams who are competing, in the top of the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference that have, as little squad depth as the Red Bulls have in some positions. They just got Andres Reyes back, who made his first appearance in Cincinnati, which is a big help just in terms of, being able to rotate some players every once in a while. For the Red Bulls, really, what the main core 11 is, and that's probably what it's going to be. I think just NYCFC have a major point to prove, because in the Open Cup, they laid an egg. Whether that was they performed bad or not, that's what happened. They couldn't keep their heads. The discipline got away from them. And this is a match where they're now ahead of Red Bull in the standings. They can sort of put them behind them a little bit with a win. They know what to expect now from a derby match with this Red Bull squad. People like Tom Edwards are going to try and get in your head a little bit. I think New York City is going to be better prepared, but I really can't wait for this matchup, because as far as MLS games go, this is marquee event. The match will be on ESPN. It's just everything you can want out of a domestic match here in the United States.
Nick, you called upon the days of old Timmy Cahill, as well as Thierry Henry, former NY Red Bull legends that obviously became legends at other clubs and then took the assembly line to the retirement home that is the MLS, which is slowly transforming out of that. But there are stars on display. NYCFC has 3 MLS All-Stars. Alexander Kynes from the back end, he was a coach's selection. Tati Castellanos, the MLS leading goal scorer, voted in by the fans. And then Sean Johnson, the goalkeeper, who's been with that club since its beginning, getting the commissioner's nod. For the Red Bulls, it is just the lone Aaron Long, James Birle's best friend, his closest allies on that back end. I'm super excited for the match, boys. I obviously won't be there because it is at Red Bull Arena and press passes and credentials were hard to come by. You two will be there. Make sure to follow these two on Twitter, both James Birle and Nick Guzman, for all the match updates as they're there. The match itself will be on ESPN at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're not on Twitter, be sure to check it out on ESPN, because as we've said throughout this video, it's going to be probably one of the closest domestic game feels that you would have anywhere across the sea, and maybe then some, because of how much these two teams dislike each other, how much each team has something to prove, and ultimately how each team wants to move forward in the season. 3 points is necessary this upcoming Sunday. So as we see NYCFC and New York Red Bulls gearing up to face one another, it's going to be a match that we've touched on, boys. We're going to see probably their best 11. Lineup predictions, I think it's a little harder for NYCFC than it is for New York Red Bulls, just because of the depth that NYCFC has had, some guys in better form than others. But they took an off day yesterday against Dallas on Wednesday. It didn't line up their best 11. They switched to 3 in the back to give some center backs and wing backs the day off, who I think you can expect, obviously, Johnson in net and Tati up front. Across the back line, it's been pretty consistent with Gray, Martins, Kynes, and Amundsen. Alfredo Morales in the midfield. Acevedo, I could see starting, and then, you can sub him off in the second half as they've done all season, whether that be for if you're going with Thiago coming in or Gabriel Pereira coming in, providing a little more inspiration in that 6 role. You need to have Maximo Morales. Santiago Rodriguez has been phenomenal this season. If you looked at any of the highlights from their match against the Revolution where I was there, he was just an off-ball pest, and then he was fantastic dribbling in space. Then Tyus Magno has been perhaps one of the biggest signings since he came into the MLS last year, in my opinion. He just brings so much creativity, and he's such a young player that he provides everything that Tati Castellanos wants in terms of service, and as well as not him having to be the guy that goes and gets the goal. Between Rodriguez and Magno, with Maximo Morales situated in between them behind Tati Castellanos, I think that 11 specifically that front 3 and 4, depending on how forward you want Maxi Morales to go if you're Nick Cushing. That's going to cause problems for this stout NY Red Bulls defense that, repelled NYCFC 3-0 a couple weeks back in the Open Cup.
Well, yeah, you mentioned it with the Red Bulls. You kind of know what you're going to get going into the game. Last time out, they missed a big piece in Sean Nealis, who was out with red card suspension. I think he's going to draw back into the lineup, a guy who's been highly praised and also scrutinized at times for his inconsistency, but also for his ability to eat up minutes on the pitch in a very, very thin area, and that is center back for the New York Red Bulls, where they really only have the 4 natural center backs in Long, Nealis, Reyes, and Monzon, and Reyes out injured for 4 months. Monzon doesn't see the field. So Aaron Long and Sean Nealis have been so important. Aaron Long coming back from that injury. I think Sean Nealis draws back into the lineup. I think Tom Edwards even gets a chance to push up into a more of an advanced position on the right wing back position if Andres Reyes draws into the center back, which is huge because Edwards is so much more valuable than Dylan Nealis is, for example, in that right wing back slot. Even though Dylan Nealis in his own right has been, again, good in some areas and bad in some others. Nick, I know you can corroborate that to a T. Speaking of T, John Tolkien, legend on the left back position. He is going to be, once again, very, very crucial to not only getting in New York City FC's head, but also driving the game forward and winning battles on that left side. The midfield, Frankie Amaya, I mean, what else could you say about him? He has made the leap from a squad player last season to one of the best midfielders in Major League Soccer. So I think there's a lot to be excited about in the middle of the park and in the back. Carlos Coronel, for me, is one of the best keepers in the league, right up there with the likes of Sean Johnson, Pedro Gaese, Andre Blake. And then up front, you got the guys like Lewis Morgan, Luquinhas, and hopefully a lively Patrick Klimala for the Red Bulls. I mean, when he is on, the team is on. I know a lot of people like to criticize him, but he makes the team better. Luquinhas and Lewis Morgan have absolutely transformed this team into an offensive powerhouse, in which ways they were not last season. And even before Luquinhas' arrival this year, the team did not always look strong going forward. Now they have that 1-2 punch in those two creative guys. Nick, I'm curious to see if you say anything different, because I feel like this is all pretty much set in stone.
Yeah, there's really no differing opinions because, I mean, there's really no other options the Red Bulls could go with. You think players like Drew Yearwood, who saw starting minutes earlier in the season, but sort of didn't perform up to par, and now they've seen themselves relegated to a bench role. Then you also have people like Caden Clark, who is now back from CONCACAF U20s. We're going back to the Olympics. We're going to the U20 World Cup. He had a wonderful tournament. So he can, provide some impact off the bench if needed. But I think it'll be a 3. It'll be what we usually see with Long, Nealis, and Edwards, and Nealis and Tolkien at wing back, probably Castros and Amaya in the middle, as it always is, and then Luquinhas and Klimala and Morgan leading the line. You know what you're going to get, but it's a system that works, so there's really no reason to shift things around. But the Clark coming back from the U20s and Andres Reyes coming back from injuries just do really, it does a lot just in terms of if you wanted to move things around, you could. But I think we pretty much know what we're going to see from the Red Bulls.
Well, gentlemen, I guess the only way to test our theories about how this match might shake out, if we got all 11 and I guess 22 when added together correctly, is to stick around until Sunday, because the proof is in the pudding. I made a famous bet, which Nick didn't even agree upon, that if NYCFC scored the first goal, he was going to buy me a hot dog at Red Bull Arena. I won't be there, gentlemen, but if Red Bulls go up 1-0, I will Venmo for one hot dog. So you can either split it in half.
We get just split one hot dog. That's so funny.
It's not even worth it with the prices at Red Bull Arena. I'm not going to lie. I love that place, but a hot dog there it's expensive, to say the least.
So maybe the hot dog bet will be called off, but we certainly will be glued to the television and to the pitch for the two of us that are there. I'm excited to break this down next week with you guys, because as we saw in that Open Cup and we see consistently throughout the MLS this season, there's a storyline after every win. And I think between the two New York sides, we see a parity that is unrivaled in recent years. And I can't wait to watch it and follow along with you guys on Twitter. Until that Sunday, though, Keenan, Troy, Nick Guzman, James Birle, saying, up NYCFC. Let's go out to the alleged home of the Red Bulls from New York in middle of nowhere, New Jersey.